If you're thinking about buying a home in Vancouver this year, I'm going to share something that most real estate pros just won't say. You might actually regret it. And I know that seems pretty extreme, especially coming from me, but with everything going on right now, this isn't exactly a normal market. There are way too many moving parts, too many unknowns, and honestly, a lot of folks are rushing into things without fully grasping what they're getting into. And in a city like Vancouver, where price tags are already high, making the wrong move isn't just a tiny hiccup. It's the kind of thing that can set you back years. Here's the real deal. A lot of people are still hanging on to outdated expectations. They are hoping rates will drop, prices will cool off, and suddenly everything will feel affordable again. But what if that doesn't pan out? And what if rates stay higher for a while? What if prices don't dip in core spots you actually want to live, like Mount Pleasant, Fraser, Maine, Cambie, or Kitsilano? That's exactly where buyers get caught. They dive in thinking it's a savvy move, only to realize down the road that they rushed into one of the biggest financial decisions of their lives. So before you head out to scoop up a duplex or detached home in Vancouver this year, let's chat about the real risks that are flying under the radar. One of the biggest headaches, and this has been the story for years, is just the lack of inventory. There simply aren't enough great homes available in the neighborhoods people actually want to live in. Sure, there's inventory, and it's all-time high, but the good stuff, I'm talking about the good stuff. And when you narrow that down to what most buyers are hunting for right now, duplexes, detached homes in Maine, Fraser, Cambie, or Kitsilano, the options get super slim. When supply is that tight, things naturally get competitive. You might not see the same wild bidding wars from a few years ago, but don't get it twisted. The good ones are still flying off the shelf. And when they do, you're going up against other super serious buyers. That's usually when the bad decisions start to happen. People stretch their budgets, they rush the inspection process, and they start making excuses for the things they normally wouldn't touch. And that's exactly where that buyer regret starts creeping in. Because it's not just about overpaying, it's about what you had to sacrifice just to win the keys. Sometimes buyers feel pressured to write firm offers, drop subjects, or move way too fast without really checking the property. And in Vancouver, where repairs and surprise fixes can cost an arm and a leg, skipping those can come back to bite you. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the interest rates. A ton of buyers kicked off this year totally expecting rates to keep on dropping. That was the big story, and that was the hope. But so far, rates are hanging out higher than most of us expected. And there's zero guarantee they'll drop significantly anytime soon. And that honestly changes everything. When you are buying a home in Vancouver, even a tiny bump in rates doesn't just tweak your monthly payment. It can completely reshape your entire budget. A higher rate could literally be the difference between snagging a detached home versus squeezing into something smaller, or being pushed out of your favorite neighborhood entirely. So now we are seeing serious buyers jump into purchases with higher payments, just crossing their fingers that they can refinance later. But here's the flaw in thinking. Refinancing shouldn't be a nice bonus, not your main game plan. If your whole strategy rests on rates dropping soon, you're putting yourself in a risky spot. If they don't drop or they don't drop enough, you're stuck with a monthly payment that might feel tight long term, and that's exactly where the second guessing begins. Another big worry right now is the chance of overpaying, which is especially tough in a pricey market like Vancouver. Let's just say you pick up a detached home or duplex in East Van today for what it feels like a solid price right now, but then over the next year or two, the market cools off even more. Suddenly you're sitting there with a home that might be worth a little bit less, or at best hasn't gone up in value at all. And does that automatically mean you made a terrible choice? Not necessarily, but it definitely becomes a headache if you were thinking short term. Real estate really only works its magic when you give it time. If you're thinking about moving, selling, or shaking up things in a couple of years, that's when things get risky. Markets never move in a perfect straight line. They bounce around. If you bought right at the top of your budget, locked in a higher rate, and you don't have much wiggle room, that stress can build up fast. And that's where your timeline matters so much if you aren't planning to hold it for at least 5 to 7 years. Especially around here, you're probably taking on more risk than you actually realize. Something else people really aren't talking enough about is all the shifting happening within the real estate industry itself. We're seeing changes on deals are put together, how agents get paid, and how buyers go through the whole process. While a lot of this is still totally evolving, one thing that is becoming pretty clear, the buyers might end up having to cover a few more costs than they used to. That means on top of scraping together your down payment and closing costs, you might be on the hook for extra costs depending on how the dust settles here. And in Vancouver, where everyone's budget is usually stretched to the max anyways, that extra financial squeeze really matters. So if you're already pushing your absolute limit just to get your foot in the door, adding surprise costs to the mix is definitely something you want to watch out for. After hearing all of this, you might be thinking it's just best to sit back and wait it out. And honestly, for some folks, that might be the right call. But if you are going to hold off, you've got to use that time wisely. Think of this as your window to get super strong financially. Focus on knocking out any high interest debt. Polish up the credit score so you can get the best possible rates later. Pad your savings, not just for the down payment, but for that emergency fund you'll need after you move in. And most importantly, get a crystal clear view on what you actually want. Saying I want to buy in Vancouver is just a bit too vague. Are we talking about a duplex in Fraser, a detached home off Main, something walkable near Cambie or Kitsilano? The more dialed you get in now, the more ready you'll be when the perfect place pops up. Because when it does, you don't want to be just scrambling to figure things out. You want to be ready to jump on it. So, should you buy or hold off? Here's my honest take. If you're feeling rushed, super uncertain, or financially stretched thin, you probably shouldn't be buying right now, because those are the exact ingredients for major buyer regret. But if you've got some stability, you know your numbers inside and out, and you're thinking long-term, and you're buying for all the right reasons, then it's totally a solid move, especially in a buyer's market. Buying a home this year isn't the problem. The problem is buying one for the wrong reasons in a stressful situation without a real game plan. Buying real estate in Vancouver can surely be one of the best long-term moves you'll ever make, or it can be an absolute nightmare. It really comes down to how and when you jump in. So please don't rush just because you feel like you're missing out. And definitely don't jump in just because someone insists that now is the time to buy. Make sure it's actually the right time for you. Because in a wild market like ours, the winners aren't the ones who move the fastest, they're the ones that move prepared. If you're navigating the Vancouver market right now and feeling a bit overwhelmed, please don't hesitate to reach out. Drop a comment below or send me a private message. I'd love to connect, help you find some clarity on your next move. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.